And I said, stop. And I said, what's the rest of the name? I said, was it him? She looked at me. She locked eyes with me. And she just, I said, when did it start? The whole time I thought I was protecting my sister, my little sister. He was already abusing her. So we're talking 4 years. She was a freshman when I was a senior. 4 years, all the way through high school, this baby was abused by a school teacher. My mama was abused by her own father, and she prayed and prayed and prayed that that would not be passed on to her children. And we knew that. My sister was afraid to tell Mom. Mom prayed that this wouldn't happen, and it happened. How can I look at Mom and tell her I failed? I said, no, baby. I've been where you are. Let me tell you what God did for me and how he set me free from that. I said, I thought I was protecting you because I couldn't stand up and say anything. You couldn't stand up and say anything because you thought Dad was going to get in trouble. She said, yeah, that's what that man told me. That the church would turn against my daddy and my daddy would lose his job and we would be the laughing stock of the state. I said, baby, the church will love you. Our brothers and sisters will help you. How many knows that if I would have listened to the culture of the 80s and 90s and been afraid to stand up and say I failed to find the freedom of God, my sister would have been dead. She would have committed suicide. She did attempt it. And every time she attempted, God would speak to me and I'd go find her. Her first year at Lee, she was down there by herself. But that second year at Lee, she called me. She said, if you do not come to Lee University, I'm never going to make it home. Guys, her first year at Lee was when I was in the LPN program. Remember that day I failed that test? It was the very next day she called me. Do you think I would have went to Lee if I was getting ready to pass my LPN? Do you think that I would have given up an absolute free scholarship to a nursing career and went to Lee and took on $30,000 worth of debt? No. Can you see where God's hand was on this the whole entire time? Did bad things happen? Yes. But what Satan meant for evil, God turned it around for good. Every single time. Every single time. I get to Lee, I try out for campus choir. I have this community again. You know that community that I thought that I lost at Williamstown? I have this community of brothers and sisters, like-minded, where we love the Lord, we're worshiping, we're praising God, we're going into churches and we're ministering, and I feel that call again on my life begin to really sink down in. I was helping at Switzer. I was the youth pastor as a teenager, once that I had gotten myself right again. And Mom and Dad needed help. There was nobody to take care of the teens. And I stepped in, and I knew God's call was on my life. But Mom and Dad always told me, baby, if you can do anything else but ministry, do it. You better make sure you are called to ministry. You don't do it because Mommy and Daddy did it. You don't do it because it looks good. Because, honey, looks are deceiving. He said, if you are called into ministry, you better make sure that there's nothing else in this world you can do first. So I was going to nursing school because I can be a nurse. I like taking care of people. Until God showed me that's not what I've called you to do. I go to Lee. I go down there thinking that I'm going to finish my Bachelor's of Health Science. And I go because my sister calls me and says, if you don't get down here, I ain't never going to make it. Okay, I'm coming. Remember how she remembered all of Mom and Dad's information, financial information? Guess who else's financial information she remembered? Honey, I get down there, I got scholarships, I'm already signed up for classes. She picked a major for me. I mean, when she said, pack your stuff and get down here, she was like, I already did all the work. I said, how did you know my Social Security number? She starts rattling it off. I said, you forget it right now. Don't remember that. Get that out of your head. She said, oh, honey, I'll remember it forever.
Should I go to prepare a place for you?
You're right, Simeon, you're right. I get down there. I love my classes. Guess what major she picked for me? Early childhood and education. I said, Liz, why'd you put me in early childhood and education? She said, because you're so good with kids. That's what you should be doing. I go and start volunteering there at the special needs campus on the Lee University campus. I love it, fall in love with these kids. And I'm taking all these classes, and then all of a sudden I hear about this great big national test I have to pass. And I get scared. I can't pass the test. I have test anxiety. I cannot pass that test. I cannot do this. So guess what I do? I change my major back to health. Because I can do that. I can do that all day long. I can do health. I can't do that. I can't pass these big tests. There's like 4 of them. You got to pay $125 just to take the thing. I'm just going to pay to fail. I ain't doing it. So, here I go, me trying to take care of me again instead of listening to the Lord. So I switched my major real quick because I can only be here for 3 years. I got to get out of here in 3 years because I can't afford any more debt. I'm trying to be smart about it. I was down there 2.5 years, and I graduated with my bachelor's. I needed to be there for my sister and get her through it, but I needed to make sure I wasn't going to sink myself financially for the rest of my life. Because how in the world am I ever going to meet somebody and get married if I can't help provide? Was my thinking. Because you heard my dad. He's very much a financial brain. So he has instilled in us, you have to have credit and it has to be good if you ever want to live. And then you live off of what you make. Don't you go get credit cards and make these big, huge, expensive bills that you can't pay. So I'm trying to be smart, and I'm trying to use all this wisdom that my parents have poured into me. So I switch back over to health, and I get my bachelor's degree, and whoo, praise God, I'm getting out of there. Somehow, I end up in the banking field because I graduate in December 2008 to go back to Switzer. God calls us to Cumberland Road, and I'm like, dear Lord, I have friends here from, at that time, Princeton Church of God, but I don't know nobody down here. How am I ever going to have these connections to be able to make it? I'm in Walmart, and lo and behold, there's one of my friends' mom, and she says, well, First Community's hiring for tellers. Why don't you put in? So I put in, I get the job, and I work at First Community from 2010 to 2012 when I get married. So I'm working as a teller, and I'm like, well, I could be making a little bit more money, so I think I'm going to go to the pharmacy. And there was a pharmacy there in Bluefield, and they were hiring, and it was hands-on learning. And where I already had my certifications from SWIVIC that I had gotten while I was there in phlebotomy, I knew the medical terminology. So I'm going to do that. So I get the job, pays a little bit more than a teller, and it was just a wonderful experience. By this time, I'm dating my husband, and we get engaged. And I'm like, okay, I've got to have more than what I'm making if we're going to be able to pay for an apartment and live. So I go from working in pharmaceuticals as a pharmacist assistant back to the banking world. And then somehow the Lord takes me down to Hinton to work down there. And it was wonderful. Just beautiful people down that way. It's beautiful land, too, if you ever get to go down that way. And then he brings me back here to Princeton, and I'm working in commercial banking. And it was wonderful, doing great. I'm riding high, and I'm just loving the Lord, living life. I'm the youth pastor at Cumberland Road. We're reaching people. That Monday, my boss comes in because she had been off for 2 weeks. She went on vacation. She comes in and gives me this card of appreciation, tells me how good I did on Monday. On Thursday, she fires me. I said, what in the world? You just told me about how good I did. Why are you firing me? Well, they didn't miss me as much as I thought they would. You did really well. And I just can't have competition for my job. I just signed a lease on a new townhouse. I've got to be able to help my husband pay for this. It takes both of our income. Wait a minute. And she knows this. I said, okay, well, can I go to a teller's position? No, I made it to where you can never work with this bank again. Okay. So home, talk to my husband, what are my options? I said, I've got every email. I've got the card that she gave me. I'm going to reach out to the president of the bank. He's a minister in Bristol, Tennessee. I don't know. I don't know what my options are. She said she did the paperwork. I can't work for the company. I reach out, and he's like, unfortunately, the way that she filed the paperwork, I cannot offer you anything. I'm so sorry. Okay. Go to camp meeting, and I'm sitting there, and I'm like, Lord, I'm trusting you. And they need somebody to work youth camp. So I signed up for all 3 weeks because I love youth camp. I have never missed a Church of God youth camp since I was 6 years old. I'll be 40